So today we have Skye Quinlan, was born in California during an earthquake and raised in the Midwest, where corn stalks outnumber the people. When she's not writing, you can catch her at the nearest metaphysics or craft store, dressed up in cosplay at the nearest convention, or ruining antique furniture with epoxy resin and paint. I like that. Skye still lives in the Midwest with her wife, their 2 dogs, several lizards, a snake, and the occasional little human, their niece. Skye's debut novel, March Forward, comes out next Tuesday. Woohoo! Yay! So check that one out too. All right. Anna Meriano is the author of middle grade series Love, Sugar, Magic, and young adult titles This Is How We Fly, and It Sounds Like This. Her work has received starred reviews from Kirkus School Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, and has appeared in anthologies Up All Night, Living Beyond Borders, and Game On. And works as a tutor and part-time teacher in her hometown of Houston. She's a former flute player and currently plays full contact Quidditch with the Houston Cosmos.
Oh yeah.
All right. I've never gotten to say that. Thank you. And then lastly on our panel today is Crystal Maldonado, who's the young adult author with a lot of feelings. Her debut novel, Fat Chance Charlie Vega, is a New England Book Award winner, a Cosmopolitan Best Book New Book, and a Pop Sugar Best New YA novel. Her next novel, No Filter and Other Lies, explores teenage life in the social media age and the lies we tell ourselves and others. By day, Crystal works in higher ed marketing, and by night, she is a writer who loves Beyonce shopping and spending too much time on her phone and being extra. Her work has also been published in Latina, BuzzFeed, and the Hartford Courant. She lives in Western Massachusetts with her husband, daughter, and dog. You can find her everywhere at Crystal Wrote or crystalwrote.com. So today we're here to learn about No Filter and Other Lies, and I'm so excited for this conversation, and I don't want to ruin it by trying to describe it, so I'm going to give it to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yay. I'll be back later.
Yay. Hi, friends. I'm so excited.
Hi. Definitely. Congrats on No Filter coming out.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations, Crystal.
Very excited to be celebrating with you. And of course, Skye and I are here to celebrate and also to talk a little bit about some of the themes in No Filter and Other Lies, particularly social media. Because that's something that all of our books are involved in.
Yes.
So let's actually start, since all of our books involve social media, to have that aspect. I think we planned this panel on social media on Twitter together.
We did.
We definitely did.
Yeah, so let's start. Crystal, do you want to pitch No Filter in tweet form, 280 characters or less?
Yes, let's do this. And then I would also love to just jump in and talk about social media right after too.
Absolutely.
All right, so here is my best tweet that I can do. Lord help us. Okay, 17-year-old Kat Sanchez is a social media obsessed, charmingly messy, fat brown photographer who is desperate for validation on Instagram. After a bad night and a little bit of booze, a little bit, she steals a friend's pictures on Instagram, makes a whole new identity, and chaos ensues. That's all I got.
Love it so much. It has 1,500 miles from the sun vibes.
It definitely does, like getting drunk and maybe tweeting a little bit. Like, yeah. I feel like this book hopefully makes Johnny Garzavia very proud. But yes, I want to talk all about social media and sort of how big of a role it plays in all of our stories and just like our feelings about it, and how we were just saying it would be so hard to exist as a teenager now with like all of the pressures, not just of school and like college and the future, but also I feel like having your entire life documented on social is so stressful.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. I loved that you said charmingly messy in your tweet. It just felt very real. I had a review of my middle grade novels that called my character gently flawed, and I feel like that's that same like.
I love that.
Like, yeah. not making good choices, but we love them anyway.
Right. Aren't we all a little gently flawed? Let's be
Right.
real.
But I feel like even the fact that like, you know, you felt the need to put it in, or that someone in the review felt the need to point that out, is like kind of because of this idea on social media of like everyone being perfect or needing to be like an idealized version of themselves all the time, to the point that like being a little bit messy becomes this thing that you're very self-conscious about.
Absolutely. And this is a big thing for all of us, like as people, but also for Kat in the book. Like her whole thing is she loves scrolling through Instagram, and she sees all of these like influencers and all these incredible people who seem like they have it all together, whether it's like people who she'll never meet in her entire life or like her actual peers who she knows. And so like she just feels so bad about herself because she's like, I am such a hot mess. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I even want to go to college. Like I don't know anything. And then she's like comparing herself numbers wise to other people. And I feel like that's the other really hard part, especially when you're a teen, where you're like, oh, I only have X amount of followers, but like this other person has Y amount of followers. And like, it's like data that you can look at, which is so stressful.
Proof that you're less popular.
Exactly. Like, that's the worst. What about you, Skye? Like, what are some of those like social anxieties, or maybe social celebrations? Like, because social media is not all bad. In your book.
Yeah, so social media, I think Harper has like a love-hate relationship with it in Forward March. So the book actually starts out with a girl confronting her because somebody has made like a fake Tinder account and it's like posing as her, and they catfish somebody else in her marching band. And the book is about like they try to find out who did it. And
what if it's Kat? What if Kat is the one behind this Tinder account?
That's it. That's the answer.
Oh no.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler, it was totally Kat who catfished Margot.
But sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
But so, okay, so it seems like there's, you know, it's not all bad. It's a little bad. You mean catfishing on Tinder, not great.
Yeah.
Similarly, not great for Kat. Like,
and I think it's funny that you both of those stories have that sort of like fake identity, the fact that you don't have control of who you are on the internet,
Right.
including like your face, your whole personality can just be sort of hijacked in this way. In my book, not the one that's not out yet, the one that comes out in August, it sounds like this.
I'm so excited for something like this.
yeah, cannot wait.
Thank you. Now I'm losing what I was going to say. It's an anonymous Instagram account. It's a marching
Those are
band
so
gossip.
stressful.
I know, a marching
my
band
God.
gossip blog, or not blog, but Instagram account. It was a blog when I first wrote it, and then we updated it because I'm old. Instagram account where people can like send in, and people will make fake accounts just to send messages to this anonymous account who will then post them.
Yeah.
And my character Yasmin, you know, she's not running the blog. She's not like putting a fake version of herself online, but she's dealing with like that hyper scrutiny and always knowing what everyone is saying about her.
Yeah.
Because they're doing it anonymously and they just don't have, you know, the filter. So she's just gets glued to this because she is a lot of times the target of what people are talking about. She does some things that get her targeted, and then it sort of continues from there. I know. And it's just that like hyper scrutiny, that hyper, and then it becomes part of how she conducts herself, which it already was, because, you know, these sorts of feelings have existed before social media, where you think, you know, everyone's judging me and I need to be perfect in a certain way, or I need to be people pleasers have always existed, but like it's worse now. It's harder. There are so many more people to please.
It's so amplified. Yeah.
And so like it's just tragic for Yasmin to like try to deal with that when has this idea of herself as being someone who can please everyone, and then she gets into this social media world where it's just not possible. But like, so she doesn't go the route of reinventing herself, but I feel like, you know, it was just it could have easily happened.
Right, they're kind of like two sides of the same coin, right? Because it's like in one way you're changing, or not changing how you act, but you're at least conscious of the fact that people are watching and like they might post something anonymously about you or submit something, versus like Kat, she has that self-consciousness so much for herself that she feels like she can't post authentically as Kat because she's like so fearful of being perceived as anything other than like this tough girl. Like, so she has this group of friends who are all boys and they're always making fun of each other. And they have like this really fun competitive side to them. But then there's the other side of it where she's like, I never want to express my feelings because they're going to be like, oh, you're such a girl or whatever. And it's like, it ends up being tough. And so then weirdly, like the anonymity of this new account ends up being weirdly freeing in a way. Like she can sort of explore her sexuality in a way she never thought possible. And like she ends up finding like a cute follower who happens to be a girl. And she's like, wait, I think I like this girl. But like she never would have, I think, let herself feel that if it was her Kat on Instagram. So it's so bizarre how social media has like these abilities to go one way, not so great, and the other way, and like maybe connect you in ways you weren't.
Yeah, and that anonymity that's like weaponized in my book is actually freeing in your book. Like it's all really interesting. I also have a big group of boys in my book because Yasmin gets sort of kicked out of the flute section and has to join low brass with a bunch of freshman boys who have also been kicked out of their sections respectively, and they've sort of made this new low brass section because it is a loose Snow White retelling. So she's got the 7 freshman boys.
That is so exciting.
So now I'm like even more connections, but also I'm like, I think it's funny that, you know, in her case, in Kat's case, the boy camaraderie is a little bit limiting, and with Yasmin it's like a little bit freeing because she's getting out of some toxic like friendships and she just needs some like, let's just all like chill and make some jokes.
I love that. Okay, so this is why we need so many books out there, because I think the same 2 people can be put in the exact same situation and it feels absolutely different.
Yeah.
And like that's why having that representation in even ways of like, oh, these are how these friendships evolved or don't evolve, that is super important.
Yeah, and like it can all be true. Like it's, you know, if we followed our characters through multiple arcs in their life like a human, but they're not, they would probably have all those feelings.
Are you saying our characters aren't real? Because that really hurts.
I'm sorry, Yasmin. You're real in my heart.
Well, and one of the things that drives Kat too, like not just her friends, like she loves her friends and there is a lot of healthy competition there, but she, you know, does worry about what they'll think, but she's also kind of limited by her family and a lot of the familial feelings that she's sort of dealing with. So she has a unique situation in which she is living with her grandparents and being like, those are her, you know, for all intents and purposes, those are her parents, but her mom, dad, and little brother live right down the street. And so it's really complicated. And I think hard for her to sort of feel like she was maybe not so wanted by her parents. And so that adds this element of like, is there something wrong with me? And like, who do I have to be? Who even am I? And how do you sort of deal with complicated family dynamics as it is, which I'm sure some of us have experienced in real life too. So
yeah, so I know mine and Crystal's I think deal with like family dynamics. So Anna, does yours deal with family dynamics, or like what is like the family situation in your book?
Yeah, so in it sounds like the book's actually like a semi-companion novel to my first YA, This Is How We Fly, which has it's a Cinderella retelling, so it has an evil stepmom and a stepsister, and then the little stepsister grows up, so it's set 5 years later, and Yasmin has her own book, and so she lives in a blended family. She lives with her mom and then her stepdad and her step sibling, who by 5 years after the events has gotten some clarity on gender. And she has family dynamics, but I think what I enjoyed about writing like the companion book and looking at that same family from a different perspective is kind of what we were just talking about, that for Ellen in This Is How We Fly, it really was like her evil stepmom. Like she had all of her angst was sort of tied into that idea of like not having the, feeling like she was lacking this certain type of love, feeling like she had to try to like squeeze herself into a place where she didn't really fit. And it all sort of stems from that, even when it's like spiraling out to affect her friendships and her other parts of her life. Yasmin doesn't really have that. She has like a lot of parental love in her life. She has a lot of parental expectations, and that I think has really contributed to her like people pleasing. She has also a sibling who has been through a lot of like family drama, so she's very much like I'm the good kid, I don't cause problems. One that I know. She has that like complex.
She's the golden child, basically.
Yeah, no, for sure, like 100%. But like, so that really just influences all the ways that she like thinks, acts, talks. But also because she's so good at keeping that balance, like I, as a writer, had to give her other external conflicts that weren't centered around the family, because even though the family is not healthy, it is not, she feels like she has a handle on it very much. And like, even if she doesn't really, and even if it's like causing her harm, she's never going to recognize that if I don't push her in other ways. Which is why she has the really friend-centric, like inciting incident and drama and conflict, because all of that like pushes her to finally admit I'm not doing as well as I thought I was, even with my family relationships and everything.
Right.
And then Skye, what about your book?
Yeah, so it's interesting you'd say that like she's like the golden child. Harper is very much has to be the golden child in her family because her brother was kicked out of their boarding school and he was sent off to military school. So they've not really had contact with him in the last like several years. So Harper is very like the sole attention of her parents, but at the same time, her parents, she also goes to boarding school. Her mom is the dean of that school, so there's like really high expectations from her to like perform well and just like be the golden child. And her dad is a politician, and really the only time Harper sees her dad is when he is dragging her out for like political propaganda. Like he like a very big focus of his like presidential campaign is that he's a family man, and so Harper has to struggle with the fact that like, oh, my dad only wants to see me when there's a photo op, or my mom only wants to see me when she's critiquing something I put online or something I've said or done. The like saving grace of like the family dynamic is at the very end, Harper actually gets to see her brother again for like the first time in like a very long time.
Oh,
so
that's gonna make me cry.
I know, I'm already like.
It seems to be this like from reviews, it seems to be like the favorite part of the book is when he comes back. So
oh, that's
really
so cute. Well, it's so funny to hear you mention, well, not funny, it's kind of tragic for our characters, but when you're talking about how Harper has this dad who is like, I very much want to kind of prop up my family to kind of have this like, there's like an end goal, right? Like he's like, oh, I'm a family man, so let's take pictures and let's do this and let's do that. And it's like to help his image. Kat has that similar experience, but with her mom, who very much on social media is using she's basically like a Facebook mom. She's like, I post these pictures of my family. I write these long captions about how we're so close and we spend all this time together and yada, yada, yada. And then like behind the scenes, Kat knows that none of that is true. And so she's grappling with like her own mom kind of starting with the lies. And so she's seeing her mom just like hold up this picture perfect family narrative. And she's like, that is fake. And also you never actually like talk to me or know anything about me. And yet, according to your friends, you're the greatest mom ever. And we're like so close. And that adds this element of, and I'm sure it's the same for Harper, but like just feeling of like just utter rejection, but also kind of resentment. And like, there's just so much there and tied in with like the longing, because there is kind of like a, why don't you just want to have a family dinner that doesn't have to be a photo op, right? Oh, it's our poor characters. I know.
Babies.
I just want to give them all hugs.
I don't know if it will come to anything, but I really have a future project that I want to write with a Twitch streamer parent. Like, I just want this so badly.
I want to read that so badly now.
Fingers crossed.
Okay.
Gotta get the pitch together. Speaking of the pressures that families can put,
Oh, good Lord.
YA characters often
This
grapple
is a
with
great segue, by the way, that I keep interrupting.
no. YA characters often grapple with the overwhelming pressure of the future and what comes after, high school and teenagerhood. What inspired you to have Kat grapple with whether college is for her? You mentioned that a little bit.
Yeah, so she has a lot of internal like battles, I would say, about what comes next for her. So she's in her senior year of high school, and so overwhelmingly the conversations around her are about, college applications and extracurriculars to add. Yeah, you're a teacher and also a tutor, and like, okay, well, let's do this extracurricular so it looks good on our resume and it sort of like rounds us out. And she has this friend of hers, Marcus, who's she's very close with, and they are probably the most competitive when it comes to their photography skills. But where he is very like on it, has a portfolio, knows exactly what comes next. And he's like, oh, I just do this as a hobby on the side. I don't know what I'm going to, like, he already has a path laid out. She's like, wait, I didn't even know we could do portfolios, or like that I could charge for photography, or like, I didn't know that college was this big of a deal. And so she has all of these like kind of internal spirals where she's just not sure of her future in the same way that it seems like her friends are. And that causes some trouble for her. And it's not as if all of her friends are going to college. She has one of her friends who's like, I'm not doing college, like I'm going to trade school. But it's the like security of like knowing. It's the knowing, right? And it's that she doesn't, and she has no clue what she wants to do. And so I wanted to include that because I very much like felt that way and grew up in a town where it was just expected you were going to go to college. And so I did, because it was just, I don't know, like that was what everyone was doing. And that was what I was told you had to do. And then I got to college and I did the whole like move away and you're going to live there for 4 years and whatever. And I was so miserable. And I ended up like not dropping out, but like I left and I became a commuter student, and that worked out so much better for me. But I didn't know there were options, basically. And so I kind of just wanted to explore the fact that like, it's okay if you're not really sure about the next step, and you don't necessarily have to go from high school straight to like 4-year residential college. Although if that's what you want, like that's fabulous too.
Yeah. One of my little cousins is kind of like figuring this out right now. Has kind of moved states, is living and working and applying for colleges, but like taking a semi gap year or possibly multiple gap years, or possibly, like just waiting to see what is going on, what she wants to do. Like I think it's a very realistic thing. Not everyone has it figured out by 17.
Right. It's a lot
wild,
of
I know. Some people don't have it figured out by 30.
Or we change careers or whatever. Like it's a whole thing. Like, what about you guys in your books? How do your characters sort of deal with just the, I think, what comes next feelings? Because even if they're not seniors, like that pressure, I feel like gets applied as soon as you step into high school. It's like,
oh yes,
TikTok,
Yes. So Yasmin is only a sophomore, but the book opens with her having missed out a lot of freshman year because of a hurricane. I'm a little behind. I'm still in 2017 natural disasters, not the 2022 natural disasters yet. But so she missed a year of school and like did a lot of it virtually, or did a lot of it like sort of asynchronous. I didn't mention Zoom again because I'm a little behind, but like with the seniors were off campus, or they had to share a campus with another place. So she's coming in feeling like she's already behind. With a lot of things, including her extracurriculars, because she didn't have the chance to do marching band. So now she's like, oh, they're going to look and see I only did marching band for 3 years.
Oh,
instead of 4. Like that's the level of pressure we're putting here.
right.
And she, as soon as she starts sophomore year, her mom is like, get your PSAT book. Have you been working on it? Like, go take the class that they have on Saturdays. And she gets to that class on Saturdays and she sees her freshman friends there. And she's like, okay, what are you doing here? And they're like,
oh no.
I've got a helicopter parent. Like, I got to be doing this now. It's too late, sophomore. And she's like, oh no. And then she's also got another friend who he shows up to the thing saying like, my friend who has the helicopter parent told me about this. I wouldn't have known. I didn't even know we needed to do this. Like, and now I'm stressed out because my parents weren't telling me to do this. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
So
and
she's
that's-
kind of navigating that.
feel
Yeah.
like I was just gonna say, I feel like that's an important distinction too, because some people do have parents who have done it and they know like, oh, the PSATs and you sign up for this, and others of us are the first in the family to go, and so you're like, wait, what? We have to do
Mhm.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so Yasmin gets a lot of like comparisons. She's usually compared favorably because she is the golden child with one of her like best childhood friend. The childhood friend is, slowly building up resentment about that because she didn't do as well on some of those like Duke talent searches in 7th grade, or she's not quite as on top of her grades. Yeah, I think it's really just, it's like Yasmin's not necessarily applying for colleges, but she's so aware that also that her older sibling got into college without maybe as much struggle, but she's like, that's not going to fly anymore. And I don't think, I mean, that might be something that I wrote several years ago, but like it continues to be true every successive year. It gets harder and harder, which doesn't seem sustainable, but
It doesn't seem sustainable at all. All right, Skye, what about you? How does that sort of manifest, or does it manifest in March Forward?
It does a little bit. It does a little bit. Harper is a senior in high school, so she is halfway through her senior year. She's getting a lot of pressure from her parents. Like, okay, you're going to go to Harvard. You're going to major in like political science. I have a friend in admissions. Like, make sure you get it into them. Like, it's a whole thing. And Harper doesn't realize that she doesn't have another option until her band director actually sits her down and is like, hey, where do you want to go to school? And Harper's like, oh, Harvard. And she's like, no, not your parents. Where do you want to go? And so Harper finally gets to realize like, oh, I actually have a say in my own future. And it's kind of like I don't want to say coming to Jesus moment for her, but it kind of is. So she ends up realizing like, okay, I don't have to do what my parents want me to do. Yeah, and she just realizes like I want to go to school, I want to do music, and no one's gonna stop me. And her band director's like, okay, I'll help you prepare for an audition. Her friends are like, oh, I'll tape your audition and like send it in for you. So she gets the support system like for college that she doesn't have from her parents. So it's like, it's really nice. And like, that was kind of my experience too. I was like a first generation, like nobody in my family had ever really graduated high school, let alone gone to college.
Yeah.
And so when I got to college, it was like a culture shock because like nobody prepared me for it. And like, I remember I moved into my dorm room and I was there alone that first night. And I called my mom and my grandma like hysterical. I was like, I don't want to be here. Come get me. I made a mistake. And I actually only lasted like 2 months as like a boarding student. And I like didn't drop out, but I left and I started doing everything online.
Oh my God, Skye, me, you, same person.
Yeah, like before I went to college, I had just got like my anxiety diagnosis. So it was just like horrendous for me. And I think if Harper were to get like another book or something, I think she would very much deal with like the same thing. But fortunately, she's got her friends and her band director who are like, no, you need to be a music teacher. This is what you're going to do, and we're going to help you get there.
Okay, I'm like so proud of her because for figuring out what she wants to do, right? Oh, it's
I think that's just, I feel like I need to just mention that like college was like the first place that I felt at home because like, I don't know, I just feel like this is the best thing ever. I just felt like I need to like stick that in there.
Well, that's the thing is it's so different, right? And college, I made some amazing friends and I feel like I had so many incredible experiences and I learned so much and I learned so much about what I liked and what I didn't like. And I just didn't like living there, right? Like it's so weird how that works.
Yeah, like my roommate,
she's 100% valid. I just was like, it's not all bad.
No, it's good.
It's good. Like my roommate is still one of my best friends. And like, I felt so bad because they were at class when I moved out because I didn't have the heart to be like, hey, I'm moving out today.
Oh,
They had like a night class, and that just happened to be when my friends could help me move out. And like, oh gosh, it was a, I don't know. I wish I had known earlier that like online was another option, or like
Yeah.
not living on campus was another option.
Well, yeah, and that's why it's so, I feel like, crucial to talk about these things and like share our experiences. Like, we didn't, none of us had the same trajectory through college or after high school, and yet we still all ended up in very similar places. Like, we all have books, and hey, this is pretty cool. And so I feel like,
and we all have dogs.
we all have
We
dogs,
do.
which is really the pinnacle, I think, of
The
happiness.
dream.
So, like, I think it's important when our readers kind of pick these books up and they at least see the conversations happening to at least be aware that there could be other options. I think that's super important.
Right.
All right, we're almost coming up, I think, on our Q&A time. Do we want to do one more question and then?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, Crystal, your first book, Fat Chance Charlie Vega, included storylines related to like body positivity and like a Latina identity. Charlie shares intersecting identities with Kat, and Kat's story isn't really about that. So what inspired you to like make the choice and like make the change to like a different theme?
Yeah. So, okay. So when I was writing Charlie Vega, and I don't know if you guys felt similarly about your first books, but I was like, what if I only get the one? And like, what if that's it? Then what is the story that I want to make sure that I tell? And so for me, that was like, okay, if I can only do one thing, then I want to make a fat Latina heroine in a romance book. And I want her to not lose weight. And I want her to have like all of the wonderful, tropey, fluffy, delightful things that I, as a reader, have enjoyed forever. And I want this to happen to somebody who shares like identities with me, because I felt like that was kind of what was missing. And then I got to write another one, and I was like, wait, what? This is so cool. And so then it was kind of like, okay, well, now that I've touched on those things, what's another like aspect that I really wish I had been able to see kind of when I was growing up? And so for me, like, it's the other side of that. So it's like both stories that center the identity, and then stories where it's just like, yeah, this character is fat and she's Latina, but she's also just having like a cute little adventure. Or in Kat's case, she's just lying a bunch and, you know, getting into a hot mess. But
with
like,
lies.
Yeah, exactly. But her story ends up being about so much like that's related to social media. And then I think I mentioned when we were talking before that there's a lot of dogs in this book, and she's working at an animal shelter. And she's discovering her bisexuality. And so it's all of these other things. And so I felt like that was the other important side of it, was like, yes, of course, our identities shape who we are. They shape our experiences. And that's really important and really valid. And we need to talk about that. But we also deserve to be characters who just like get into hijinks and like who don't have to talk about identity if we don't want to, kind of thing. And so that was, I think, kind of what I was trying to do with No Filter. And I really kind of was like, #justice for messy, like marginalized characters. Like, I want us to be able to make characters, like, we're all from like marginalized authors, and I want us to be able to make characters who are gently flawed or charmingly messy, just the same as like a Holden Caulfield exists out there, and that's like a messy character. So I wanted that for Kat, and I was hoping that, like, you know, when readers would read this book and they'd sort of finish it, they would close it and be like, okay, it's okay that I have made mistakes, and it's okay that I'm imperfect and I'm still learning. And hopefully, if people feel kind of sympathetic towards Kat and her journey, then they can maybe turn that kindness kind of inward and like make a little room for themselves too.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
I have just a little line in this book, and of course Ellen has like talks at length, I think, about her, you know, bicultural upbringing and like not feeling Mexican enough and all that stuff that is very important to say, very relatable in Texas especially, but like has been said by lots of other books, and I get that. So with Yasmin, I just threw in a line one time where she's with a group and they're starting to do that, and she just goes, we don't have to do, just because there's 3 Mexicans in a room, we don't have to say who's the most Mexican. Can we just not?
You just don't have to do it.
Yeah.
I love that. Exactly. Like, it's obviously it's super important and we need those books, we need those stories. But sometimes you're like, I don't know. I just want to like, just have a good time or just be messy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Teenagers just are messy.
Yes, teenagers are messy.
Exposing all the different facets of one, you know, having lots of books for lots of experiences.
Absolutely.
I loved your takeaway. That was such a good takeaway.
Oh, thank you. All right, should we have Katie? Katie, can you come back and hang out with us?
I wasn't going to interrupt that conversation. It was fantastic.
Yay!
So until you said it's time, I was staying out of it. So we do have lots of questions, and I'm very excited because these are some awesome questions. So I'm going to start with this one. It's for Crystal specifically. How was 90s con? And would you write a book set in the 90s?
Oh my God. Okay.
So those
just
pictures, they look
okay.
great.
I was very excited to ask this question.
Yeah. So I spent the entire weekend at 90s Con. It was the most incredible convention I've ever been to. It had the cast of Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Boy Meets World and Family Matters. And then they also had like musical people, like TLC was there and 2 of the 5 Backstreet Boys and Joey from Tone from NSYNC. And so I was in my freaking glory. Like this, so I have a 2.5-year-old. So the last 2 years I have not done squat. We have been like stuck inside, just like doing absolutely nothing. And this was like, this is the weekend. I'm going to go out. It lived my like inner child and like pay tribute to her. And it was so much fun. And because of that, I feel like 1,000% I would write a book set in the 90s. And it's funny because when I started No Filter, I actually did have it set in the late 90s, like early 2000s, but it was so hard to describe what the internet was. Like I was having a really hard time being like, how do I describe like the sound of dial-up and like how do you right, and how do you
historical fiction novels?
It is historical fiction now, and I just was like, I don't know, I'm not living in that world anymore. And so I was like, you know what, forget it, I'm gonna update it, it's gonna be current because it's so hard. But I do want to go back to it though.
Cool. Have you seen Turning Red? Sorry, that's unrelated.
No, it's next on my list.
Okay, because it's set in like early 2000s. Okay, anyway.
Okay,
it's got a boy band. It's good.
If anyone also likes the early 2000s, late 90s, Pen 15 on Hulu is just
I've heard
like
really good things.
chef's kiss perfection. They do have an AOL episode and like they do the whole like what your screen name's gonna be. It's so good.
Excellent. I was really excited for that one. And
That's a great question.
Dial-up being historical fiction is painful.
I'm gonna go have to lay down now and just think about that.
Under my mortality.
YouTube the sound of dial-up for nostalgia's sake. All right, so this is for everyone. What social media influences or moments of your life do you include in your stories? Because all of your stories have social media aspects. So were there any influences?
Ooh. So I actually was influenced specifically in Charlie's story, actually. So Fat Chance Charlie Vega, there's some scenes where we kind of see her on Instagram and she is seeking out like fat fashion hashtags, and she's like looking up fat fashion icons and influencers and like starting to follow them. So that wasn't exactly what happened for me, just because like Instagram didn't exist when I was a teenager, but I did the internet, like social media was my first foray into what body positivity was. And I didn't know it existed before I found this community on LiveJournal way back in the day, called Fashionista. And it was just this sweet group of people who were just like, hey, I'm plus size and I just want to show off my outfits. And I don't have a place online where I can do that without getting, harsh judgment. And so this was like this closed community. It was super progressive and like forward thinking. And just talking about some of the things we talk about now, like, wouldn't it be cool if like healthcare was for everybody? And like, how about we talked about pronouns and like, just like very respectful. Well, which I didn't expect when I was like, oh, cool, fat bodies that look like mine wearing cute clothes. I get to go like shop at these places. But instead I found this like beautiful, really wholesome, progressive place that just felt like home. And so I wanted to give that to Charlie too, because I think social media can be big and scary, as we've discussed, but it can also connect you in wonderful ways and help you like figure yourself out, and you can meet great people. Like the three of us met on Twitter, and we just like had a tweet where we're like, let's talk social media, and that was it. And now we're here. So
and
yeah.
Crystal, that whole phenomenon you're describing is like really similar to something that I tried to capture a little bit in my Quidditch book. J.K. Rowling sucks. Don't be a turd.
Yeah.
Let's just do that first. But like that was a community where I also like joined this little Facebook group of like Quidditch players who like feminism, and I was like, hi guys, and I got that same sort of like this just really great community, closed group, like talking about these issues that were affecting us, talking about sports and like the way that we maybe hadn't been raised to be competitive or raised to know how to throw a ball, or like there's just these things that we were dealing with, or honestly raised to referee because people were yelling at us and not trusting our opinions. And then like it sort of evolved and it became a whole other thing, and it became like a community and all this great stuff. And that's all in this book. And then in my new book that sounds like this, it's very much like the toxic side with the fights. And it's actually based on a Facebook post from my marching band days. It was very badly anonymized. It was like a kid was like, guys, somebody sent me this. He made it. Nobody sent it to him.
Oh
we were just all not smart enough to realize.
The drama.
Like it was like I was like 5 years out of high school, and someone mentioned like, hey, did you hear that he really made it himself? And I was like, I mean, it checks out now that I think about it with any amount of critical thinking skills. Anyway, it was an anonymized chart of the band kids and who had a crush on who, but it was only like their instrument, not like their names. It was just like, a flute loves a saxophone. Everyone's like, oh, we don't know any flutes who are dating saxophones, which means their love is forbidden.
Oh my God, this is so dramatic. I love it.
Or like a tuba is dating a color guard, but has a crush on and everyone's like, ah. So there's like a little line acknowledging when the Instagram goes up, the anonymous Instagram, when it goes up for the year, they say something about like, in the 80s, they ripped down our Post-it board or whatever, like our cork board. And in the early 2000s, they shut down our Facebook posts. But they can never stop the spirit of band gossip.
That's amazing.
Band gossip's the worst.
Well, tell us, have you catfished on Tinder? Is that where the inspiration is for your, like, what's...
Sure.
No, I have not catfished anybody on Tinder. Back when I was in high school, I had this girl who I was friends with, and she lived in a different state. So this was like, we met like through fan fiction, like back in the day when like Neba and Quizilla were still a thing. And she decided that she was going to catfish me with this guy who went to her school. And like she pretended like to be this guy for like 6 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like for a long time. And like we started dating, and I figured out like halfway through, okay, this guy's fake, and I played along with it. And then finally one day I was like, hey,
charmingly
like,
messy.
can you put him
Charmingly
I was like,
messy.
can you put him on the phone? And she's like, yeah, he moved to Florida. And I'm like, convenient. So yeah, I've been catfished technically, kind of, but I figured it out. halfway through.
I am about to call
A benign
Neve
version.
from MTV and get you on Catfish so you can finally confront your catfisher.
Oh my goodness.
That's too good.
Wild.
All
I'm
right.
glad you took it well, because I feel like that can be
Yeah.
not as chill as you're telling it.
Also, 6 months in high
She was
school
like
is
co-writers.
like forever. Like that's a really long
Yep.
time to keep up a ruse.
This also reminds me of how
Yeah,
my
I mean, like
parents-
she had one of. Oh no, you're fine.
I was
She
just
had like a friend with a very androgynous,
Oh, is that how she was pulling it off?
and and I was like, okay, I was like, I'm sure this is a real person. So like, she had her friend like write my name on her cheek,
Oh my god.
like back in the day, when we used to like do like those kind of whatever. It was very similar to that. And then they ended up getting in a fight and not being friends anymore. So the boy moved to Florida.
Moved away. Oh my god.
Yeah.
wow.
Okay. Well, excellent. Excellent things to put into novels, right?
Why not?
I was gonna say this reminds me of the fact that every time anything bad happens to me, my parents just go, "Oh well, put it in a book."
Oh, parents.
I like that. Okay. So next question. The LGBTQ representation in your books is amazing. How important is it to you to build characters that are positive role models for LGBTQ plus youth?
Oh my god.
Very important.
So important.
Crystal, you're also in Texas, right?
No, I'm actually
Oh.
in Massachusetts.
Sorry.
No,
There's like a big group of us, and I sometimes put people in the category that are
okay.
not.
Are you inviting me to move there? Because okay,
Please.
I'm down.
Come and vote. Come and vote in Texas.
You got it.
Sorry, Braden, but like living in Texas, it is extremely hard to me to represent, to like write the books that I don't even know if they're gonna always get into the hands that need them most. Honestly, deciding how much I'm saying on This Is How We Fly very much like flies under the radar in terms of that. It doesn't have anything on the front cover or anything really, I think maybe the word inclusive. And that was like kind of a choice about that book to keep it. And this was obviously before the Harry Potter stuff became what it was. So now I kind of wish it was more obvious in its representation and like what, where it stood, because now I'm afraid that it's unfortunately turning people away. But it was kind of a choice to not put that on the cover or not put it in any of the promo materials very obviously, because I just know kids who, wouldn't be able to bring, two boys kissing home. And so I do think that, again, like, while we absolutely need to have, I Wish You All the Best, like, book with like a canon on page, it is about a non-binary character coming out as non-binary. I also like that we are able to have books where kids are figuring out their identities, questioning, and maybe it's not the main focus, and therefore, unless someone's reading really carefully or looking really carefully, they may not notice it, and therefore it might reach the hands of some kids who wouldn't have gotten it otherwise.
Yeah, that's a really good point and a super important, I feel like, reminder, just like that not everybody who wants access to certain novels and stories can have access to them, which is, I mean, we could talk forever about how much that's terrible, but yeah, so with, I tried to include representation across the board for so many different people who, like, regardless of what identity you have, in both of my books. And I made a conscious choice in the first book to have Amelia be a Black girl who was pansexual, and I wanted to spell it out on the page because I just remember being part of so many book discussions where it's really frustrating when you have an identity and you want you are looking for that like black and white, like this person belongs to my community. And it's hard when it's all guesswork and you're like, well, I feel like this character is mine, but I don't know. And so I tried to like make it not a guessing game and very much just say like, oh no, this is who this person is. And similarly in No Filter, Kat is at the start of the book is like not sure of her sexuality, which was like a similar experience to me. And then sort of we watch her, like at the beginning, she's like, everybody likes girls and would like kiss a girl, right? Like that's everybody, right, guys? And then like realizes like, wait, I might be bisexual. That might be
Your guns.
yeah. And so I actually like know other people who've had similar experiences to that. And that was like my experience. And I only came to the term like bisexual during the pandemic and TikTok. And I kept getting served these things that was like, you want to kiss a girl, you're bi. I was like, no, everybody kisses girls. Like, it's fine. And then you go through it, and you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, oh. And I was writing this book before I had like, so Kat was bi, and I was like, it's just representation. And then by the end of the book, I was like, it's me. So like it's you know, basically you never grow out of, I think, the need to have that feeling of like community and identity, and it's never too late for your coming out story. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so for March, like, it was like so like important to me to have like asexual representation, like just explicit on the page. I would have known so long ago that I was ace had I just read it in like the books I was reading or seen it on TV or like in any of the media that I was consuming. So Harper kind of goes through a bit of a struggle. Like she's not familiar with like the LGBTQ terms because like her parents are very homophobic. And it's not until she meets Margot because of the whole Catfish plot line that she's like, oh wait, I think I like Margot. And she actually uses like Tumblr, like very old Tumblr posts and teaches herself like the different meanings. She's just like, oh, I'm a lesbian and I'm asexual. And like, that's my identity. And like, it was just so important for me to have like a character on the page that like says it, lives it, and gets a happy ending.
yes, I love
That's
that.
huge. I have had students that have, maybe I shouldn't even say this. It's important to have happy endings. I have seen students who, as they start to come to terms with their identity, also start to like dive into tragedy in a certain way in their writing. Keeping this as vague as possible on purpose, sorry. And so I just think it's so important. I just love that very much.
Yeah, of course. Like everybody deserves a book that shows them that their identity can result in a happily ever after, right? Like
And that's valid.
Yeah, and that it's valid. Absolutely.
That was beautiful, all of you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next question. What authors inspire your writing?
Oh, there's so many.
I know.
So one author that I want to just mention is Raquel Vasquez Gilliland. So she's the author of Cia Martinez and the Moonlit Beginning of Everything, and also How Moon Fuentes Fell in Love with the Universe. And she has magical realism that's like within her books, and there's just something about it that I'm just like, well, wish I wrote this. And like, and I feel like the best books are like the ones you're reading and you're like, I want this to be mine. And that's how I felt very much like reading her books. And so it's like an auto buy for me.
That's very similar to how I feel about Anna Marie McLemore.
Yeah, that was
and again, not like the same style as my writing. My writing's like much more voicey contemporary, but like I just wish, I long, I yearn.
Absolutely.
It's very Madeline Miller for me. Like when I read the Song of Achilles, and I was like, I wish I had like conceptualized this and like written this myself. Like it was just so good. And yeah.
So good, and it's not fair.
It's
And
not.
we mentioned Johnny Garzavia, always on
yes.
top of my list. Zoraida Cordova.
Incredible.
Those are
Gabby
fantastic
Rivera
answers.
also. Yeah.
Such amazing answers. Okay. If you could have your characters cross over to any other book, movie, or TV show, where would they be?
Oh no. There's like too many choices. I feel like my brain's breaking.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break any brain.
This is
No,
not
it's such
so
a good
young.
question.
I mean, I already want my characters to meet the kids from 1500 Miles from the Sun.
That's a good crossover.
Because, yeah, I mean, they're already in Texas. I feel like it's bound to happen.
I
I
want
like it.
Kat to go. Well, okay, so selfishly, I would love Kat and Charlie to meet from the 2 books, but I also want Kat to go into. There is this amazing book by Angela Velez called Lulu and Milagros Search for Clarity. And it's about these 2 sisters who go on a road trip across country and they're trying to figure out like college and next steps and like boy feelings and all of these great things. And I just think Kat would have such a good time with the 2 of them on a little road trip and that she could use some like sweet girl friends like in her life because she's always surrounded by boys and they're wonderful, but I think she could use a little softness.
Skye, you know where Harper would be?
I would want to put her in some kind of fantasy world and just see what she does.
Love that.
I like that. Okay.
I would love to stick her in like a Sarah J. Maas book and be like, what magic did you get? Like, which quarter are you in?
Yes.
Amazing.
Excellent. I like that. Okay. Last question. Could you tell us about your characters' pets or yours?
This is the
Maybe
best
both.
question. Okay, so Kat Sanchez, like I said, she works at an animal shelter and her dream is to have a dog, but her grandma is like deathly afraid of big dogs. But that's where Kat's like, that's her heart. Her heart is in these giant dogs. And so there is this one 3-legged dog. His name is Cash, and he's a pit bull in the book. And she just like falls in love and they become little besties together. And they're just always hanging out at the shelter. Ah! Yay! And then my dog Obi is a sweet little 12-pound Maltese, and he makes an appearance in No Filter as well. Oh my God.
This is Cisco.
Hi.
He's so cute.
Cisco. He's a little confused as to why this is happening because usually I don't play with him when I'm at work. And Yasmin doesn't have any pets, tragically, because it was established in This Is How We Fly that the stepmom wouldn't let there be any pets. But her best friend has a fluffy white dog named Felpudo. And so she has like some moments of like, I don't hang out here as much anymore. We're growing apart a little bit, but I miss your dog.
I miss you. I miss your dog. And I love that for her.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Harper, she, like her and her roommate have fish. They're contraband fish. They're not actually allowed to have fish.
Aww.
But because her mom is the dean of the school, like they were fish that used to be in her mom's office. And the mom's like, I don't want the fish anymore. So Harper and her roommate Nadia like rescue them and like keep them in their room. On my end, so I have an English bulldog and his name is Moo. And he's just a squishy, wrinkly, stinky puppy. I have a pit bull and what is he? He's a Newfoundland and pit bull mix, and his name is Shiro. And then you can't see them. So over here, I have like a bunch of lizards. So I have 2 bearded dragons, and their names are Charmander and Stormageddon.
Oh my God.
I love that.
I have a gecko, and her name is Spock, and then I have a snake, and his name is Sebastian.
Oh, I just want to
So
come
cool.
over and meet your pet.
Your gecko's name's Spock?
Yes.
Amazing.
He has a little like spaceship like house in her tank.
Oh my God.
So it
I
fits
love
so
it.
well.
Oh my goodness. That was the perfect question to end it on because now I am all
Absolutely.
the pet feels.
Good question.
So thank you to all three of you for being here. Thank you to our audience. We had a fantastic time. I could have listened to you forever. So please come back.
Absolutely.
I know our audience would love it too.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having
Thank you so
us.
much.
This was so fun.
Yes, we'll do it again soon.
Perfect.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye, everybody.